The day I signed the divorce papers, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for another chance. I simply placed the pen on the polished wooden table, stood up, and walked away with nothing but the old jacket on my back and the wedding ring still warm in my hand. My wife smiled as though she had finally won. The people standing beside her laughed quietly, convinced they had just watched a broken man disappear forever. None of them noticed the black limousine slowly turning the corner outside the courthouse. None of them knew that within the next few minutes, my entire life would change in a way no one could have imagined. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always comes back, second chances are real, and good people deserve happy endings, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing emotional stories like this one. My name is Nathan Brooks, and this happened in Boston, Massachusetts. For 8 years, I believed my marriage was built on love, sacrifice, and trust. I worked as a maintenance supervisor at an old manufacturing company. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep food on the table. I often worked 12-hour shifts, skipped holidays, and accepted every overtime opportunity because I wanted my wife, Victoria, to have the comfortable life she dreamed about. She always talked about bigger houses, luxury vacations, expensive restaurants, and designer clothes. Every time I apologized for not being able to afford those things, she would smile politely and tell me she understood. Looking back now, I realize she stopped understanding long before I noticed. Life slowly became colder. The laughter disappeared from our home. Dinner conversations turned into uncomfortable silence. Victoria spent more time away from the house, saying she was meeting friends or attending business events. Whenever I asked questions, she accused me of being insecure. I blamed myself for everything. I thought if I worked harder, earned more money, or became a better husband, somehow our marriage would heal. Instead, the distance between us only grew wider. Then one evening, she calmly placed divorce papers on the kitchen table. Her face showed no sadness, only impatience. She explained that she deserved someone more successful, someone with ambition, someone who could give her the lifestyle she believed she had earned. The words hurt more than I could ever describe, but the deepest pain came from realizing she had already made her decision long before telling me. The courthouse felt strangely quiet that morning. Victoria arrived wearing an expensive emerald dress, smiling beside a sharply dressed businessman named Marcus. Everyone seemed to assume he would become her future. Friends congratulated her as if divorce were some grand celebration. I signed every document without complaint because I had learned that forcing someone to stay only creates more misery. Some victories are simply not worth fighting for. After handing back my copy of the papers, I stepped outside into the cool afternoon air. I held my wedding ring in my palm, wondering how 8 years of memories could suddenly feel so empty. My heart wasn't angry anymore. It was simply exhausted. That was when the black limousine stopped beside the courthouse. The driver quickly stepped out and opened the rear door with unusual respect. An elderly gentleman with silver hair slowly emerged, dressed in a tailored charcoal overcoat. His posture reflected quiet confidence rather than arrogance. He looked directly at me, not with pity, but with recognition. For a moment I thought he had mistaken me for someone else. Instead, he smiled warmly. Years earlier, before my marriage, I had unknowingly helped an elderly stranger whose car had broken down during a winter snowstorm outside Boston. I had spent nearly 5 hours fixing his vehicle without accepting a single dollar. He had offered me a business card, but I politely refused, believing kindness should never come with expectations. I had forgotten about that day entirely. He had not. The man standing before me was Charles Whitmore, one of America's most respected billionaires and founder of Whitmore Industries. Unknown to me, he had quietly followed my life from a distance ever since that snowy afternoon. He had even arranged interviews through companies he owned, but each time I declined because I wanted to remain close to my wife and maintain stability for our marriage. He respected every decision I made. Today, however, everything had changed. Charles explained that he had recently learned about my divorce through mutual acquaintances connected to the courthouse. He believed life had finally removed the only chain preventing me from embracing the future I truly deserved. He invited me into the limousine. I almost refused, believing it had to be some elaborate misunderstanding. Yet something inside me whispered that sometimes life only opens extraordinary doors after ordinary ones close forever. As the limousine drove through downtown Boston, Charles told me about Whitmore Industries' newest expansion. They needed someone to oversee national operations for facility management, logistics, and employee development. Surprisingly, he wasn't interested in my business degree because I didn't have one. He wasn't impressed by fancy titles or expensive suits. He valued something far rarer: character. He had quietly investigated my work history over several years. Every employer described me the same way: honest, reliable, humble, loyal. The type of man who solved problems instead of creating them. Charles believed companies succeed because of people like that. By sunset, he offered me an executive leadership position with a salary I couldn't even imagine earning. Along with it came stock ownership, leadership training, relocation assistance, and the opportunity to help shape one of America's fastest-growing companies. For several minutes I couldn't speak. Only hours earlier I had walked out of a courthouse believing my life had ended. Instead, it had quietly begun again. The following months transformed me in ways that had nothing to do with money. Charles personally mentored me. He taught me that leadership wasn't about controlling people but serving them. I visited manufacturing plants across the United States, meeting hardworking employees whose stories reminded me of my own past. I never forgot where I came from. I still shook hands with janitors, maintenance crews, security guards, and cafeteria workers because I knew what invisible people often felt like. Success came naturally because I never chased wealth. I chased purpose. News eventually spread throughout Boston about Whitmore Industries' newest executive. Old co-workers celebrated my success. Some couldn't believe the quiet maintenance supervisor had become one of the company's most trusted leaders. Victoria heard the news too. By then, Marcus had disappeared after a failed investment left him drowning in debt. The glamorous future she imagined collapsed almost overnight. Luxury dinners became unpaid bills. Expensive promises turned into broken dreams. One rainy afternoon, she appeared outside the headquarters of Whitmore Industries. She looked different. Not because of her clothes, but because regret had replaced confidence. She waited for hours hoping to see me. When I finally walked outside, accompanied by Charles after an important board meeting, our eyes met for the first time since the divorce. She looked as though she wanted another chance. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel revenge. I only felt peace. Life had taught me something priceless. Forgiveness doesn't always mean rebuilding what was broken. Sometimes forgiveness simply means refusing to carry bitterness into the future. I wished her well in my heart and quietly walked toward the waiting limousine beside Charles. The same vehicle that had once symbolized impossible miracles now simply represented another ordinary day built on gratitude. Years later, Whitmore Industries established a nationwide scholarship program for hardworking tradespeople who never had the opportunity to attend college. Charles insisted I oversee the entire initiative because he believed no one understood perseverance better than someone who had lived it. Thousands of families eventually benefited from those scholarships. Every graduation ceremony reminded me that one act of kindness during a snowy afternoon had changed far more than one billionaire's life. It had changed mine. And perhaps it changed countless others too. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to comment below with the words, "Kindness always returns." We'd love to see how many people still believe that doing good never goes to waste. As this story comes to an end, if it inspired you, reminded you to never lose hope, or encouraged you to keep believing in brighter days, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing powerful stories that remind the world that hope is never truly lost. The greatest miracle wasn't the billionaire's limousine that stopped outside the courthouse that afternoon. The greatest miracle was discovering that losing the wrong people sometimes makes room for the right future. Sometimes the end of one chapter isn't a punishment. Sometimes it's the beginning of the life you were always meant to live.